they want me to bless the ring again and give that ring. I said, you don't have to. The once the blessed, it is blessed forever. And yet, since you are asking for a blessing, I bless it. Come on, take it. So they had, in American culture, once they exchanged the rings, they said, okay, now you can kiss each other, I said. And the way they hugged each other, both of them started crying, very emotional. The outcry was terrible. And those of us who were watching, we also started, oh my God, what is happening? And then they said, now we understand. It takes so many years to understand each other. That's the reason. Today, other day when I saw in mall my wife, and my wife saw me, and we have respect for each other from now. And thereafter, they were so happy. My brothers and sisters, today, the wonder of our being is that everything takes a time, and some factors of understanding takes years in our life. In our personal life, we cannot come to a point saying, I know everything. I have a great understanding about the person and so on and so forth. So it is not only about the loving God. What do you know? What do you know about the person who you look for, or the person who is working with, or the person who is really in love with you, and the wife or the husband? Well, how do you know? What do you know? And especially today in counseling psychology, we understand when we ask them, oh God, the way they would understand, well, I tell you. Well, one time I can tell you another elderly couple, they were in their 60s or 70s. They came to me and they asked me a question. Father, when one of us, go to heaven first, is it okay I go with that person? If my wife dies, I would like to die with her. And she says, if my husband dies, I would like to die with him, go to heaven together. Because I cannot live without her, without him. That was the kind of a talk they were chatting with me. And then I said, no, well, you see, the whole point is that when you love each other, that's the point where you don't want to miss each other. Then I had to give them some explanation about, the whole idea of our love here in this world is an enterprise of God's love for us. And you as husband and wife, you loved each other and you have been so joyful and it is wonderful. And with that gratification that you go to heaven and the loving God is so proud of you and you are united with us. And the loving God even tells us there is no such thing as a marriage in heaven and so on and so forth. And so you only after reaching heaven, reaching heaven means we are reaching the fullness of our life connected with the loving God. And so we have no idea what would be that life is all about. But we know we would enjoy the fullness of God's love. Now, the whole idea is that, when that couple had talked to me, they had went out. They had gone out and then they told me, Father, it was wonderful and we really thank you. And after a few months, I would not exactly tell you how many months. After some months, the wife passed away. And the husband, usually you have a funeral home service there, in America. So what happens in the service, the pastor of the church asked me, Father, why don't you do that service? So I went there and he was standing there smiling. And when he saw me, he embraced me and said, Father, I understand what you said. Now, I look for a chance one day to be with her in heaven. And so, are you okay now? So then afterwards, there was a mass and there was a burial and so on and so forth. And he was okay. Whenever he comes to church, he looked at me and said, okay, I'm so happy. And I told her, you see, when we die, death is not an end. We live forever. And so you pray to your wife. You loved her so much. You pray to your wife. Okay, whenever you come to church or even at home, you pray to your wife saying, okay, you are enjoying the wonder of the love of God in fullness. Now help me with this, help me with that. And the loving God would be of so good to you. And so, my brothers and sisters, today, the enterprise that, I use that word enterprise is that it's a kind of a word that we have to understand psychologically, in a spiritual way, in an emotional way, in a sensational way. All of us are called to have that enterprise of understanding ourselves first and to understand others first. Those who don't have the self image, or those who don't have the self affirmation, are the people who are not able to accept others and thank God for others. So, this is one thing that we have to understand. Thirdly, the whole idea of our own understanding, especially, is that how much importance we give to the things today. You know, accepting God is the first thing. Second, accepting others. Thirdly, the things. Today, the whole idea many people have is that money is everything. And even in the families, there is lots of dissatisfaction, the enmity going on, and the breakage is going on, all because people give importance to money over the factors of their own loved ones. So this is what is going on. And the love of ours is more important than the things we possess. Okay, there are wonderful people in the world today, they have realized this. Money is nothing. These things are nothing. All these things are necessary only for our care, for our well being. Okay. But it will not be compensated by the love of our loved ones who are in this world. And so many people nowadays, they really understand the value of our own personality than the things. So the understanding we have to have is that, some people are so much worried about the, the things that we can possess in the head of high-tech personalities today. And what is happening is that they don't care, especially, those who are born after 1995 or the so-called Z generation. Z generations are high-tech personality brain, they have that. And all the neurons are completely connected with hype. And so they wanted to have the hyperactivity of being associated with the wonderful, the cell phones, the cameras, many things connected with all these factors are all there. Even the computers, the way they change things and all, my goodness, because they give so much importance to that, because with the high-tech personality, there is an inner satisfaction of having certain things they wanted to possess. Now, people are analyzing the factors. Now, we cannot judge as elders, especially those who are in your 60s and 70s. Now, I'm in the 70s. Now, I cannot judge somebody, a young boy or a young girl who is possessive about the things they wanted to possess. Now, we cannot judge them, because of that, the whole understanding of our brain waves connected with the different generations. So, my friends, we have to understand that the love of our own self is the basis of accepting God, accepting others, and accepting the things. Okay, this is exactly what we would do. Now, the whole understanding of is that how do we fit into this individualism? The individualism, the spirituality of ours, the spiritual enterprise, I would use that word again, the spiritual enterprise, how it is connected with the individualism, the expectations of the society. That is, all of us are aware of the fact there are so many talks and findings, and so many stalwarts are talking about the different factors and different years and the different generations. So, in short, I would like to express to you a study about generations. Probably those of us who are born between 1920 to 1940, they were the greatest generations. They were considered the greatest generation because that time there was no high technology. There were no computers, cell phones, and so on and so forth. They were working hard and they were wonderful people. So they were called the greatest generations. And then those who are born between 1940 to 1960, every 20 years they make it. Of course, some of the psychologists differ from the 20s. They say even 50s, 15s, and so on and so forth. Now, those who are born between 1940 and 60 are called baby boomers. The baby boomers is that probably, all over the world, the average children born in every family were almost 7 children a family. So that is why they were called boomers of the children, baby boomers generation from 40 to 60, those who are born. And so what happened was that is an effect because the brothers and sisters were more important to them than anything else. So compared to anything, any factors they would receive, or the land or the house or whatever it is, the strength they got was from their own loved ones, their brothers and sisters. That was there. So that is why they were called baby boomers. Now, after 60s, so almost about up to 75 or even 80, they could not just give a detail about this particular generation, because this generation was a kind of a critical generation. They were critical about everything because that was the time they got the telephones, they got, so many things to talk about it over the phone and things like that. So what happened was, even of course from the 60s, they have that idea of the whole idea of the telephones and so on. The communication power was very, very good. But these particular people, that the 60 to 80 people could not be labeled. So the psychologist said, well, when we don't find a word for them, why not we call them as X generation? So they call them X generation. Generations are the people who are very critical. So please don't judge critically these people who are born between 60 and the 80s, because they are nice people, but they were confused with so many enterprises going on in the whole world about what was going on in the whole society and so on. Everything was communicated through the telephone and so on. So that is what is going on. Then after the 80s, who are born, they were considered as Y generation, after the X, Y generation. Ironically, this Y generation was called Y generation because for everything they ask the question why. So even if you ask them, hey, come and listen to this, talk, why should I? Hey, come to this man, eat on time, why? So for everything they will ask why, because asking why is a factor of, they wanted to really know things, because they were like, it's not a kind of a silent generation, or it is not about the so-called, the baby boomers generation. It is not about the critical generation, the critical generation is the X generation, but the Y generations are the people who ask why, which is very good, because they have to find out anything and everything we ask them to do, they will say, why? Why? Deep down within themselves, they ask this question, why should I do that? Then they analyze. Analytically, they do that. So this is Y generation. And afterwards, almost after 1995, they call it, Z generation. Z generations are the people who have developed this high-tech personality in the fullness of wonder. Everything they want. They don't want to have a personal talk with people. They want anything and everything they want to know. They can go to the cell phone, they can go to the computer and go into this and know everything. So their personality is different. And so come across, so many parents coming with their children, telling them, Father, that they always ask, they're always watching the cell phone. I don't know what the heck they are watching. And some of them, they are watching the pornography and other things and things like that. I don't know what we can do about it. Well, I tell them, even in the schools and colleges, I tell them, please give them the direct look at it, why they should look at it. If you could convince them of this enterprise, then they are all changing on their life. Point is that, my brothers, we have to understand every generation and every behavior is something generalized. Okay? So, yeah. So my point is this: to come to a kind of a conclusion of the spiritual well-being is that first and foremost, I hope I am not repeating it, develop the wonderful self-image of ourselves. The self-image is that we all bear the image of God. God was so loving. God is not a critical God. God is not a punishing God. God is not a distanced God. The wonderful neuroscientists, they always say the word God is a benevolent God. He's not an authoritarian. I always say it as A, B, C, D. A stands for authoritarian. B stands for benevolent. That is what the God is. C for critical. D, a distance God. Now, let me give simple explanation is about authoritarian. Now, you know the difference between authoritarian and authoritative. Authoritarian is that, because I'm somebody, I would like to control people. That is authoritarian. In some of the companies where you work, you know that. Some of the people or some of the managers who work there, they have to go get along well with the people. But some of them will control you with all that. That is not the real spirituality. So that is exactly, you have to understand the generation. The generation, you have to understand there is something going on in our own understanding about the authoritarianism. Authoritative is you are given a power, you are given a job where you have to really be kind to them, encourage them, and because that is needed for every person. Probably from the childhood days onwards, you have to appreciate people, you have to encourage people, and you have to show kindness. If you had received it from your childhood, from your parents, the affirmation of appreciation, for every little thing that you had been appreciated, for every little thing that your parents had encouraged you, and even if you happen to make some mistakes, they were so kind to accept it. So all these factors have to be given in an authoritative way, not an authoritarian way. Authoritarian is power and control. Authoritative is kindness, appreciating, encouraging people to do that. So this is one thing that is really going on. The whole idea of the accepting our own God is not an authoritarian God. He's an authoritative God. God is so compassionate, loving to us. Secondly, I told you the benevolent. We will explain benevolence afterwards. Third one, he's not a critical God. Sometimes, even in Christianity, the whole idea some of us preach about God is that God is watching you, God is going to punish you, and all this. Well, when God is love, how can love punish us? Probably, St. Paul would say, love, the breadth and the width and the length of the love, if we know, my goodness, we would never ever talk about the critical God. Today we have analyzed, all of us know the depth of the love of God about 25 to 30%. If we increase our own understanding of the love of God a little more than what we have learned now, I tell you, our personality itself is going to be completely complacent with the wonder of God's love. This is one thing. So this is exactly, you have to understand, that the distance God. We always think of God as somewhere else, some up above the heavens and all these things. Well, the loving God who created heaven and earth is within each of us. The wonder is the loving God is within us. That is why St. Paul would always say, I live, but not I. Christ lives in me. So every religion tells us the loving God is with us. Okay? The God is within us. That is why even the wonder of the yoga practices, the meditation practices, Hinduism, Christianity, all the religion. Probably the loving God is within us. Even when we breathe in consciously the breath of God into us, the breath makes us so alive. So many bodily factors are all completely gone. So, my brothers and sisters, this is exactly that you have to have about the idea of the negativity of distance God. Rather than projecting God somewhere else, you have to respect God as a God who is within us. Okay? So, with all this understanding, the benevolence is that the loving God is not a God who is punishing you, who is the loving God is not the one who is discriminating you, or the loving God is not the one who is rejecting you, but the whole world is going, the whole world. Today, there is a rejection in the name of caste, language, religion, and society status, and so on and so forth is going on in the world. But you and I, the loving God's presence in us, is making us to accept everyone. And that is what the spirituality, and that is what the well-being of the spirituality. So here I end. The benevolent God is within us, and the benevolence of ours should be manifested to the whole people, and that is what the well-being of our spirituality. So I close this here, and those of you, if you have got any questions, please ask me the question.
Thank you so much, Father, for your insightful session on spiritual well being. The feedback form has been shared in the message box.
Okay.
Please take a chance to fill it in and check out the session. If any participants have questions, doubts, or reflections, please
Yeah.
feel